Hi, my name is Mon, and this is my data analysis project for Dexter Resurrection. For this season of Dexter, I recorded things like who dies, how do they die, and who kills them, which I've been doing for all of the seasons of Dexter so far. So now I'm going to present all the data from Dexter Resurrection and make a couple comparisons to the other seasons of Dexter. Before we get started, if you haven't seen Resurrection, go watch it and then come back to this video. There will be spoilers for that. Additionally, there will be spoilers for all seasons of Dexter. All 8 seasons of the original, New Blood, Original Sin, and Resurrection. I want to start by talking about the data collection process. So basically, I just watched every episode and I recorded the following data points. Recorded the rating from IMDb taken just prior to this presentation, the crime based on the hierarchy that I'll show in a minute, the cause of death based on some predetermined categories, the criminal name, the number of male murder victims, number of female murder victims, number of non-murder victims, and the Dexter kill type, meaning in what way is the person Dexter kills a criminal. I also collected notes about any gray areas or any incidents that I debated including. This is the hierarchy that I use for all of my crime show data collections. It's pretty simple. Basically, the higher up a crime is, the more important it is. A crime can imply one below it, and ones on the same category can't really imply each other, and so they can't be recorded together. A couple other notes I used is for all of Dexter, I don't include flashbacks. I don't think there were any flashbacks in Resurrection, so it didn't really come up, but I don't include them. However, I always made note of them. I only record on-screen murders, and my definition of an on-screen murder is either seeing someone actively die or actively about to die, but maybe it cuts away, seeing a body at a crime scene, or even seeing a body in the morgue. If I don't see a body at any point, then I count it as being off screen and I don't record it as a murder, but I always make note of it. Minor crimes such as beating or hitting are not counted. If you're not familiar with mayhem, it's like advanced maiming. Murder beats out all other crimes. It is the most serious one I record. And attempted murder victims generally must be actively injured in some way, or they must be being actively hurt at the time of the attempted murder. I had a couple observations that I noted down as I was watching this season. So the first one was that the newspaper articles actually provided useful information for data collection. So especially in the early episodes, if I needed to know more about how many victims this serial killer has, I would just pause it and read them off my TV, and there's actually some good information in there. I was able to get previous victim counts for other killers by pausing and reading. This season continues the trend of confirming what Dexter's type for a romantic relationship is, and it is victimized blonde women and women who look like vampires. Obviously, Lumen and Rita are examples of the former, and Lila and Mia are examples of the latter. Additionally, the final episode introduced 2 possible serial killers if there's another season, so I don't know if you caught this, but the Yonkers Slayer and the Midnight Mangler are 2 of the names on the files that Dexter takes from Leon Prater. Additionally, the Midnight Mangler is indexed at 52, assuming that this series of numbers is an index, in which case, how many files does Prater have? There's a lot of questions there. And now on to the ratings for this season. Normally, I like to let about 2 weeks pass before I record ratings for a show that's just finished airing, but of course, the last episode had to air at the end of my first week of the semester. I can tell I'm gonna have a lot of work coming up, so I'm just gonna record this now. So it's been a pretty short amount of time since the season ended, but the ratings haven't really changed that much. To start with, this is a chart of the averages and standard deviations for all seasons of Dexter. The average season ratings are taken from IMDb, as well as the standard deviation just being calculated from it. As you can see, Dexter Resurrection is actually now the highest rated season by quite a bit. The previous highest rated season was season 4 at 8.89. Resurrection is rated at 9.34. And personally, I think there's a couple reasons for this. The first being that Resurrection continues directly after New Blood, which had a pretty bad ending, especially if you look at the ratings. I don't think it's that out of the realm of possibility that a lot of viewers just didn't come back to watch Resurrection or haven't watched it yet because it's only been a week since it ended. Regardless, I've seen a lot of positive feedback about this season online, so those who are watching it, who are diehard fans, are really enjoying it and giving it high ratings. Overall, the current standing of the seasons is, from lowest to highest, 8, 6, New Blood, 3, Original Sin, 5, 1, 2, 4, and Resurrection. If we look at the standard deviations, the standard deviation of Resurrection at 0.34 is pretty in line with a lot of the other seasons, which mostly vary from 0.3 to 0.4, with the exception of Season 8 at 0.97 and New Blood at 1.34. Here's a graph by episode of the ratings for this season. So it started off kind of average and then it got really high. It is maybe perhaps a little bit exaggerated as the axis only goes from 8.4 to 10, but all of the episodes fell within 8.7 to 9.8. And generally, this shape does follow trends of the other seasons. We have a highly rated premiere with a slight dip into the second episode. The original seasons are a little longer than the newer ones, like 12 or 13 episodes compared to just 10. So the dip only lasts one episode opposed to like 2 or 3. Then there's often a kind of a peak around the middle of the season. It was a little earlier in the season, it was episode 4, and even episode 3 was pretty highly rated. Then it usually settles out for most of the season until you reach the penultimate and finale episodes, which often contain cliffhangers. Specifically, penultimate episodes will contain cliffhangers and the finale will wrap it up, and that's exactly what happened in this season. The only difference is that this season experienced a slight dip, only 0.2 for the finale, but it did go down a little bit, whereas most of the seasons go up. And I honestly think part of it is the size of the big twist at the end. Obviously, Batista dies in the penultimate episode, and that's a very impactful twist, and it does kind of get wrapped up pretty fast in the last episode. These are all of the ratings for all of the seasons stacked on top of each other, and I realize it is very messy. But let me explain a little bit. This bottom one down here, this dark red, is season 8. I did actually cut off the graph so you can better see most of the seasons. Resurrection is this dark blue line up here. Because of the difference in the number of episodes, I did cut the shorter seasons by doing first 5 episodes and last 5 episodes. But as I mentioned, you can see a lot of the seasons do have a slight peak around episodes 3 or 4, sometimes episode 5. They'll often become a little steadier in the middle and then increase at the end, except for the London season 8. So with most of these episodes, you can see that they start high and then have a slight dip in episode 2. The big exception, I think, is season 3, which actually went up in episode 2, and Original Sin, which kind of stayed steady. There's usually a peak somewhere in the middle for the newer seasons with 10 episodes. It's going to be around episode 4 or 5. But in the older seasons with 12 or 13 episodes, it's going to be more around episode 6. You can see a lot of them increase right there. A cliffhanger or a big twist in the penultimate episode is pretty common. You can see even episode 8 and New Blood increased going into the finale. And as you can see, almost every season increases into the penultimate episode, so these episodes are pretty highly rated. And season 4, I think, is the biggest exception. Season 4 is this like tealish line here, where I think the biggest twist comes in the finale when Rita dies. And finally, the last episode tends to either be a slight rise or a similar rating. The biggest increase in the last episode is in season 6, and Resurrection is interesting because it does go down, but I mean, let's start by going over the crimes that were committed this season, starting with the crimes I did not record. So as I mentioned, I don't include things like fighting or punching unless it reaches mayhem levels, and I also did not include the roofing that took place in the first episode. I think the reason I didn't record it was because his intent was to assault her and that never actually took place. So I just kind of slipped my mind. I also never included things like stalking. Like Dexter is constantly stalking people, but I never include that as a crime. In one episode, there was a call placed to Detective Quinn in Miami, and he is at the time at a crime scene where there is a dead body, but that has zero plot relevance and there's not enough information there to even know what happened, so that's not included. Also, at the end of the penultimate episode, when Dexter just kind of throws an axe in the general direction of Leon Prater and nicks Charlie, that's not recorded either. And also Grand Theft Boat. If there is another season and the boat becomes somehow plot relevant, then maybe I'll change that, but for now, no Grand Theft Boat. And as for the crimes I did record, I only had 3. Murder, attempted murder, and mayhem. And there was a larger pool of crimes that I recorded throughout all of the Dexter seasons, but these are the only 3 that I counted as showing up in this season. And as for the causes of death, I had shooting, stabbing, asphyxiation, blunt force trauma, chainsaw, and other. And these are the crimes committed in Resurrection. As you can see, most of them were murders, with 11 murders, only 1 mayhem, and only 3 attempted murders. I will say, I greatly debated over including the mayhem and one of the attempted murders, because with the mayhem, I debated what it was and whether it constituted mayhem, and it isn't, but it felt important. And the mayhem is Dexter putting the chainsaw around Charlie's neck while he is in the back seat in order to threaten her. And the attempted murder I debated including is actually the same thing that happened to Dexter when Red Schmidt, the dark passenger, was in the back of Dexter's car and did the same thing to him, except Dexter was prepared. He had a strip of metal in his collar, so he wasn't actually hurt. But I realized since I recorded the mayhem one, I should probably record the attempted murder one. They're different crimes because the motivations was a little different in each case, I think. Anyway, the 3 attempted murders, like the cause of death for attempted murder, would be stabbing, asphyxiation, and chainsaw, one of each. As I said, there is a much larger pool of crimes that I could have pulled from. So the crimes recorded for other Dexter shows, but not Resurrection, include kidnapping, abduction, the difference being kidnapping is under 18, arson, other, and not a crime, which was unique to Original Sin. I'm pretty sure there were deaths in the original Dexter that were not a crime, but that category did not exist at the time. And also, I am genuinely surprised that there was not a single abduction or kidnapping in this season of Dexter Resurrection. There were 2 points that came close in the last episode, when Dexter was shut into the vault and when Prater had a gun to Harrison's head, but neither of those 2 incidents lasted very long. Both Dexter and Harrison were already there. They weren't forcibly taken to a second location. These are the causes of death in Resurrection. So as you can see, most of them were stabbing. All 5 of these are Dexter. Dexter killed 5 people. All of them were stabbing. No one else stabbed anybody. And across all of the shows I've recorded data for, I always categorize them as either shooty or stabby. And Dexter is historically a stabby show because Dexter just kills people by stabbing them, and so do several of the other killers that he comes across. However, I will add, Original Sin was shooty, but only by 2, and I didn't actually record causes of death for the original or New Blood, but I mean, Dexter kills people by stabbing. This is a very stabby show. Also, the chainsaw category is extremely literal, as it was a literal, chain saw. It's called a giggly saw. They mentioned that in an episode. Asphyxiation and blunt force trauma are pretty self-explanatory. Asphyxiation, I'm using interchangeably with strangulation, just, cutting off air. Blunt force trauma, hitting someone. The other, however, is a nail bat, and this was the one murder that Charlie committed. I can only describe it by saying it was like the nail bat in Stranger Things. That's what it looked like. Now on to the criminals, the people who committed those crimes. Now, the nice thing about there only being 1 season is I can really go in depth on each of the criminals. So this slide, I'm going to go over all the criminals. Starting with Harrison Morgan. He previously shot Dexter in New Blood. I originally had this recorded as a murder because at the time New Blood came out, we didn't know about Resurrection. So I just assumed he was dead, but he wasn't, hence Resurrection. So I've since changed it to attempted murder. Harrison then beat a rapist to death with a toilet tank lid. Ronald Schmidt, the dark passenger, previously killed 7, a number that I got from an article in episode 2. He then killed a man on screen. He also attempted to kill Dexter. However, even I admit, attempted to kill Dexter is kind of strong wording. Dexter was not going to let himself die. Charlie Brown nail-batted someone. It is pretty clear that the person she nail-batted is a serial killer. I'm blanking on what the guy's nickname was. I think it was something Clobber. Maria LaPierre, Lady Vengeance, previously killed at least 6, which I got from an article I paused to read in episode 4. She was also about to kill someone who is not counted because he wasn't abducted, he wasn't mayhemed, he wasn't injured in a way that I would have deemed attempted murder, so not counted. Gareth and Gareth 2, who have no last name and the other twins not named, collectively known as the Gemini Killer, previously killed 8 and also attempted to stab Dexter. He did get a little bit hurt in this one. Honestly, all the attempted murders this season are really gray areas. However, I have an asterisk next to 8. The Phantom Wiki says 12, but as Dexter was going through photos, I counted 8 bodies. Actually, no, I counted 7 bodies, but they killed in pairs, so 8. There is an unnamed prison guard who hung Mia. Al Walker, who was Rapunzel, previously killed 18, and I don't know if this was mentioned. I don't recall it being mentioned. I don't recall any number being given for his number of victims. I think Prater has 5 or 6 ponytails, but 18 is what it says on the wiki. He also strangled a woman that was on the video. Angel Batista attempted to strangle Dexter. That was a very clear attempted murder. And finally, Leon Prater shot Batista. These are all of the criminals this season and their number of victims. The bottom purple part is the number of murder victims, and the green upper part is the number of non-murder victims. So it's pretty clear to see all of them had only 1 victim except for Dexter and Red Schmidt. And I debated including Red's attempted murder of Dexter. I think attempted murder is a pretty strong word there, but I recorded it anyway. And I debated including it simply because Dexter wasn't exactly harmed, but that's only because he knew what was going to happen. So it's a gray area. There are also only 4 non-murder crimes. 1 committed by Red, 1 committed by Dexter, 1 by Gareth, and 1 by Batista, all of which are attempted murder except for Dexter's, which was the mayhem. Now, Batista's on here. He is a former cop at this point, and he committed the attempted murder of Dexter upon finding out he was the Bay Harbor Butcher. I have to admit, after finishing that episode, I had no other show to watch, so I went back and I started watching Dexter from the beginning, and literally 20 minutes ago, having been watching the first episode of season 3, and going back through my notes, I did not record any previous crimes committed by Batista. If they exist, I don't think there are any. I think this might be the first and only one. Batista has previously been stabbed in season 1 by Brian Moser, shot at, and also abducted. Now for the exciting part to talk about Dexter and the things Dexter has done. So this season, Dexter's moniker was Red Schmidt / the Dark Passenger. He killed 5 people on screen, and prior to the season, he killed 123, which I'll explain in the following slides. He killed 70 on screen, 4 in Original Sin, 56 in Dexter, 5 in New Blood, and 5 in Resurrection. The other crime he committed was Mayhem, which was putting a chainsaw around Charlie's neck to threaten her. These are Dexter's kills by season, so this is listed in a strange order. The first 8 are the first 8 seasons of Dexter, 9 is New Blood, 10 is Original Sin, and 11 is Resurrection. Now in the first 8 seasons of Dexter, there was what I termed a season killer, who is the big bad serial killer of the season who Dexter is always trying to kill, and so I recorded whether or not he killed that person. Some of the no's is not that they survived, it's just that someone else killed them. For season 11, I'm counting Leon Prater as the big bad, and he did end up dead. So far, Dexter is 8 out of 11 for killing the big bads of the season. It should be noted that in season 2, Dexter was his own season killer, so we don't count that. But in Resurrection, Dexter killed 5 victims, 4 of whom were murderers, and 1 was an otherer. That was Leon Prater, because he can't really be categorized very easily. So for the next couple slides, I'm going to go over all of Dexter Morgan's victims and show you how I came to my conclusion about how many people he's killed. If you want to just skip ahead to the total, I'll put a timestamp on the screen, but otherwise I'll go through it in chunks of episodes in chronological order of Dexter's life, starting with Original Sin. So the first person he kills does not end up in the ocean and is also shown in flashback in Dexter season 1 episode 4. In the next couple episodes, he kills two more, but still does not dump them in the ocean. And in the final episode, he kills the season killer, who does end up in the ocean. And then Dexter starts, and before season 1 and then between seasons 1 and 2, so somewhere between the end of Dexter Original Sin and the start of Dexter, and then the end of season 1 and the start of season 2, he takes 35 victims, bringing his total to 39. He also takes 35 blood slides, bringing him to 35 slides total. And none of them have been seen. However, there's a couple flashbacks that are unexplained, and we can assume that they're probably in there somewhere. Throughout season 1, he kills 7, 6 murderers, and 1 otherer, who was, I believe, a human trafficker. So then he has 46 victims, and he takes 7 blood slides. In the first episode of season 2, he doesn't kill anybody, but they find his bodies. They said 18, possibly 30 bodies were found. And in the next couple episodes, he kills 4 and takes 4 slides. Then in episode 9, he doesn't kill anybody, but Dokes finds his blood slides, and there are 46 total. This number is both said in the episodes, as well as is just how many are in the box if you pause and count like I did. In the last 2 episodes, he kills 4 people, bringing his total to 54, but he doesn't take any blood slides because he doesn't have the box, and he also can't really add to it, so he still has 46 slides. Then in the last episode of that season, again, he doesn't kill anybody, but the Miami PD now has his slides, so he's kind of back to 0. Between seasons 2 and 3, he kills 4 people, bringing his total to 58, and he takes 4 slides, which he puts in a new box. In the first half-ish of season 3, he kills 5 and takes 5 slides. In season 3, episode 7, he kills Camilla, who I am counting as a victim, obviously, but that was a mercy kill, so I never actually recorded that as a murder. In the rest of season 3, he kills 3 and takes 3 slides. Between seasons 3 and 4, he kills only 7. However, between seasons 3 and 4, Rita has a baby, and he was also busy with a baby, so I'm not sure if 7's high or low for him, but it's 7. In the first half of season 4, he kills 2 and takes 2 slides. Again, he's pretty busy with a baby at this point. In episode 6, he doesn't kill anybody, but he is shown to have 21 blood slides, which is how I figured out the between seasons 3 and 4. In the remainder of season 4, he kills 3 and takes 3 slides. Between seasons 4 and 5, is not shown, but I don't think that a whole lot of time passes, and I can't imagine he had time to kill anybody, so question mark, but probably 0. At the very start of season 5 episode 1, Dexter claims to have watched 67 die. However, at this point, he's up to 79. However, even if you take out the 4 that he killed in Original Sin that weren't explicitly planned to have changed the number when this episode aired, and even if you take out Camilla, that's still only 74. So there's a bit of a discrepancy there. Even if you go just based on the number of blood slides he has 24, and he previously had 46. That's still 70. So I'm not sure where 67 came from. However, I will say the 46 slides he had in season 2 that were taken, plus the 21 slides he was last shown to have, does add up to 67, so I see where they got that number from, but it simply isn't accurate. Throughout all of season 5, he kills 7 and takes only 5 slides. Between seasons 5 and 6, he kills 9, takes 9 slides. In the first couple episodes of season 6, he kills 5 and takes 5 slides. This brings him to 100 victims. Then in episode 3, he's shown to have 43 slides at the end of the episode, which is how I got the number between. In the rest of season 6, he kills 6 people, but he doesn't take any slides. He did take a slide from Travis, but he lost it. It doesn't end up in his blood box. He also did kill Beth Dorsey. This is another kind of like, this is a situation not unlike Camilla's death, where it was somewhat within the law, where like he was in a police station and he like shoved her into a room where her own device caused her own death, but it was still kind of his fault. Throughout season 7, he kills 7 people, but takes only 1 blood slide, bringing him to 44. In episode 4 of that season, Dexter says he will take no more slides and he burns his box. And finally, in season 8, he kills only 4 people and takes no slides. That brings us to Dexter New Blood, where throughout that whole season, he kills 5 people and takes no slides. He's just still not taking slides. You know, he wasn't expecting to start murdering again, I guess. But that does bring his total number of victims up to 122. And in Resurrection, in the first 3 episodes, he kills 1 person, but he does not take a slide, and he dumps the body in an incinerator. The next couple episodes, he kills 3 people, and he takes 2 slides. So he doesn't start taking slides again. However, because the Gareth and Gareth 2 were twins, he makes them share a blood slide. And finally, in the last episode, he kills 1 person, he kills Prater, and he dumps him in the ocean. He does not take a slide because he says that Prater is not, like, worthy of a slide. He doesn't want to remember him. So the grand total across all 4 series of Dexter is that Dexter has killed 127 people and taken 92 blood slides. So some more information about Dexter's total victims. At this point, he's killed 127 and taken 92 total blood slides. However, another fact is that Dexter has only killed 6 women that we know of at this point. However, only 4 of them are criminal. He did kill Camilla, and I do count him as being responsible for Beth Dorsey's death, but in addition to those 2, he also killed Nurse Mary, who was his first victim, shown in Original Sin and a flashback in season 1 of Dexter. He killed the human trafficker wife of the human trafficker murderer guy in season 1. He killed Lilas Renee in season 2. He also killed a woman in the season 4 episode Dex Takes a Holiday, but me of like 3 years ago did not write down who that was. Additionally, we haven't seen Dexter take his very first blood slide, so this number could very well be more. Since we don't know who he took his first blood slide from, he could have easily killed like a dozen more people and then start taking blood slides, and that's where the count would start, and then you would have that number plus the number from Dexter onwards. So it could be more. This also assumes that every person Dexter killed that he did not take a slide from was shown on screen. There are many people he didn't take a slide from for one reason or another, but I'm assuming that all of those people were ones that we saw on screen, because honestly, to me that kind of makes sense. When he kills someone that doesn't take a blood slide, it's usually because something goes wrong or his routine is interrupted, and that's usually when things go wrong in general in Miami. Additionally, with the abrupt cancellation of Original Sin, which I'm a little disappointed by for specifically this reason, we assume that his very first slide was taken from the first person he killed after the finale of Original Sin. In New Blood, Dexter claims to have killed, quote, in the hundreds, implying more, but this could have also been to impress Harrison, because Harrison, if I remember correctly, responds with something like, so you've saved thousands. And we all know serial killers like to inflate their victim totals. In episode 5 of Resurrection, Harry tells Dexter that he has killed over 150 serial killers, so while this number is closer to my number of 127 than in the hundreds, it's still higher, and he's saying over 150, implying that it could easily be like 200. Additionally, Prater has a blood slide box with 43 slides, which I took a picture of up here, and I did stop and I counted, and there's 43 slides in there. However, the one that the FBI got in season 2 of Dexter had 46, but some are probably used for testing, so I guess it kind of makes sense that there might be a couple missing, but I just thought that was interesting that it is 43 versus 46. Finally, these are the criminal victim types, which is just to say what made that person a criminal to Dexter. And this has been recording the whole time, so you can see the colors represent each show. Dark red is Original Sin, orange is Dexter, yellow is New Blood, and green is Resurrection. And most of the people he kills are murderers. That doesn't mean they don't do other crimes, it just means that they do murder, and as I've said, murder is the highest in the hierarchy. There's the most variety in the original series. So if you look at Orange, and obviously it ran the longest, but he killed murderers, abductors, innocents, and others alike. And for Resurrection, this season was only murderers, with 4 murderers and 1 other who was Prater. Now on to the victims, so the people who were victims of those crimes. So these are the genders of the murder victims in Resurrection. There were only 11 people killed on screen, and 81.8% of them are male, which is actually really high, as almost every show I've done data analysis for has had a 2/3 split. The only one that hasn't was Fargo, but that gets a pass because it's a weird format. And so there's only 1 season of Resurrection, and so the numbers are kind of on the smaller side, but this is greatly disproportionate compared to what usually happens in these shows and what's happened in Dexter series in the past. Because generally the rest of Dexter does follow this rough 2/3, 1/3 split in the gender of murder victims. But also I thought this was interesting considering some of the killers did kill women, so both Al and Lowell killed women. Lowell had no victims on screen, Al had one, but then Gareth and Gareth 2 seemed to kill both men and women, if I'm recalling correctly, and Mia just killed men. Dexter just kills whoever's a criminal, which has been mostly men, so I'm not surprised that this season had more men die. I'm just surprised that it's this many more men. And just to compare, these are the genders throughout Dexter. So again, the colors down here refer to each of the series. So this is slightly more than 2/3 that are male. It's 70.5%, which is a little more than 2/3, but it's not that far off. It's close enough that I'm still willing to file it under a rough 2/3 split. As you just saw, Resurrection has the most male, but for all of the shows, Dexter was 71% male. New Blood was 63% male. Original Sin was also 63% male. Resurrection was 82% male. However, 3 of these are only 1 season in length. Dexter ran for the longest time, and it's 71%. And that's the end of this slideshow, but I have some final thoughts. So I really enjoyed this season, and honestly I hope there's another, even if only to just record data from it, because I really enjoy doing that. However, as of when I'm filming this, September 5th, 2025. No season 2 has been announced yet, but it does seem like they're definitely setting up some more seasons because they revealed who the New York Ripper was, and it's just some random guy. Additionally, I was also writing down predictions as I was watching, and so I thought for sure Elsa or Blessing would die. I'm glad they didn't. I do think it's interesting this season that the gender ratio of the murder victims was broken to such a degree. Obviously, it's a rough 2/3 split every time, but 82% is like the highest ratio I've ever seen outside of Fargo. There's great continuity in blood slides. Miami Metro PD got the slides when they were 46, when they were Dexter's 46. It's now down to 43, but that's easily explainable. And the blood slides really tell you how many people Dexter's killed. And so I don't think even the writers have a solid number for Dexter's murder victims. But at the same time, that kind of makes sense because then they can milk the prequel series without having a solid number. Because as I said, until we see Dexter take his first blood slide, the number of people he's killed is going to keep increasing. And even when he does, he still's got like 34 more before he reaches season 1. I do wish they hadn't canceled the Original Sin for 2 reasons. 1, I did enjoy it, and 2, that show holds the key to a solid number of victims. Anyway, that's the end of this slideshow. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. If there is ever future Dexter content, you know I'll make a video about it. And if you want to see my other videos about previous Dexter series, I'll link them in the description. But just keep in mind that a lot of time has passed since those, and I finally have taken data science courses, so now my graphs are actually the correct visualizations for the data types. But make sure to subscribe if you want to see more TV data analysis videos, and thanks for watching.